Good morning. I'm actually not sure where everyone's joining us from, but a very warm welcome to the webinar today. Thanks for taking the time. My name is Dan. I'm head of product strategy here at ThirdBridge, and we're delighted to kick off the second in our series of webinars today. We'll be focusing on how we're partnering with some of the best in-class AI solutions, such as Hebbia, to really try and transform the way that our clients are leveraging expert research as part of their workflows, and just really to make it much more easier to get the most of that content that they're taking from us. Joining me today is Barry. Barry's lead AI strategist at Hebbia. And for the next 25 minutes or so, we'll be focused on our partnership and we'll cover off things like the pain point for this partnership, what it aims to solve, our joint value prop. Barry's going to take us through a pretty fulsome demo of the platform. We'll run a short Q&A, time permitting, before we wrap up, and folks can obviously submit questions for the duration of this webinar. They'll be submitted anonymously as an item of housekeeping. So feel free to submit those questions as they come to mind during the session today. Barry, it's great to have you here with us. Perhaps we can just get started with a quick intro about your role, about Hebbia, but perhaps to touch on obviously how our partnership started. Obviously, you spent time on the buyer side, so yeah, over to you.
Thanks, Dan. Really appreciate this, by the way. Great opportunity for us to get in front of folks. For those on the call, my name is Barry Duong. As Dan mentioned, I'm the lead AI strategist at Hebbia. I spent 15 years on the buy side doing roles similar to, I'm sure, many of yours before joining Hebbia. The first three, I did private equity and credit investing at New Mountain Capital, and then I spent a dozen years doing long-short equity in the hedge fund space. Worked at Citadel, Holocene Advisors, and then most recently as a portfolio manager at Balyasny. As you can imagine, I'm very familiar with what it means to have information overload as an investor and to struggle to sort of both catch detail when you need it, as well as synthesis and higher level insights when you need it. So big part of the reason why I joined Hebbia was because I believe that not only does AI as a whole solve many of those problems, but Hebbia specifically solves them extremely well. So what I'm going to do today is spend a couple of minutes just on some slides, especially for those who know little to nothing about Hebbia. But I'm going to spend the majority of the time in the product to show a portfolio of ways that our clients are using our product, including some of the ways they're using ThirdBridge in particular. And as Dan said, please, just jump in anonymously with questions. Okay, so just right out of the gate, let me just double check, Dan, you can see slides.
I can't see your slides.
Not coming up yet. Give it a second. It might be latent.
There you go. We got them.
Great. Okay, Hebbia. We are the AI platform for finance. A quick background on us. We've been around for north of 5 years now, deploying enterprise AI specifically within the finance domain. We were founded back in 2020 by George Savolka, who at the time was studying a PhD program in the early transformers, and realized that solving the problem of information retrieval is better done by building a business than by remaining in academia. He was a early entrepreneur backed by Peter Thiel to start, and then now since then we've raised over $170 million in capital, and most recently we're backed by Andreessen in our Series B last year. Index and Google Ventures are also on our cap table. All of that really just means that not only do we have experience from deploying enterprise AI in finance for many years, including years that predated ChatGPT, which for many of us was kind of like an introduction to AI, but because we're well funded, we're going to be around for a while. So many firms do partner with us on faith that we're going to continue in this journey with them, build with them, and remain very focused on this space. A second point I would make is we serve asset managers that collectively manage north of 21 trillion of AUM. We're approaching half of the largest asset managers as clients by AUM. And as you can see from the example logos that are on the right, we have firms that work with us who span asset classes, public and private, equity and credit, and also our buy side and sell side, so the broader financial services ecosystem. And all of those types of firms are partnering with us in a lot of different ways. So when we say that we have over 1,000 use cases in production, we mean it, which for demos like this puts a big difficulty on my shoulders, which is that to even show you in 20 minutes all the different things we can do is exceptionally difficult. So we will likely only scratch the surface. The last bullet on the left, pages processed. This for us is a very recent milestone. We have crossed this mark, having processed for our clients over 1 billion pages of content, which is the equivalent of about 3,000 years worth of reading and probably 2,000 years worth of analysis. So it is a demonstration of not only the scale of information that we are helping our clients process to generate alpha and/or returns, it is also true because of what we offer, which is accuracy and speed at scale. So that's a quick kind of background on us. We serve over 150 customers, many of whom are not listed here on the right because they do not allow us to share their logos. But just rest assured that among the people on this call are both active clients and hopefully soon future clients. The second page is a bit of a representation of how we know as a firm that AI is disrupting finance. The blue line at the top is that billion pages number that I just mentioned, all of which happened just in the last year, where the advancements that have happened in AI overall, coupled with the breakthroughs that we have developed as an application layer company, have allowed us to very quickly serve high-powered use cases where the common thread, again, is a need for accuracy and scale and speed. If you compare in the red line to what human beings can do by themselves, there's this growing delta between what an AI supported financial services professional can do with our platform versus what a non-supported by AI person can do. And as you'll see as we move through the demo, in many cases, the AI tools that most people are exposed to that are a chat-based paradigm are still closer to this red line than to the blue one. And I'll show you some examples why. This next page is a representation of what I was already talking about in terms of the breadth and diversity of use cases that we serve. Examples in the alternative space where we are serving private equity and credit investors in more of the private markets. We're helping them with things like due diligence, analyzing credit agreements, industry research. In the asset management space, which tends to be a little bit more liquid, but obviously some of these firms do both liquid and illiquid investing, we have a totally different body of use cases where we're serving in capacities, including idea screening and obviously relevant for this call, expert transcript libraries so that people can be very smart on topics of interest. We also serve the advisory and M&A space, and there's a growing list on the far right of corporate clients, insurance clients, real estate, where we're again helping them all solve problems using our platform. This last page has a lot of text on it, so I'll just summarize it very quickly for everyone's benefit. A lot of the questions that people get about Hebbia, and especially about our marquee product, which is called Matrix, and that's a product within our platform that I'm going to spend a lot of time on today. People ask, what is it that people are doing? What are your clients doing, and what are the common use cases? These three descriptions are the common threads amongst all of them, meaning we have clients that deal with large, dense document sets. So whether you're a private markets investor or a public markets investor, or even a sell-side professional, you have to do a lot of reading and synthesis and an analysis and associated analyses over large document sets. The second point is you typically have very manual, repeated workflows. Anything from a quarterly earnings recap process to having to write and do research for IC memos, extracting and comparing contract terms. All of these things are much more clunky than you would like them to be. And then the third and probably most important one is that you're not actually just looking for summaries of information. You're actually looking for insights that will drive investment decision-making and help you understand upside where upside is present or downside risk where downside risk is present. And for that matter, managing just bodies of documents, things like contracts and redlining, that sort of thing. So that common thread is true for everyone, and it's a big part of the reason why we have huge fans within our platform of our flagship product, Matrix, which is, again, where I'm going to spend a good bit of time today. So we're done with slides. I'm going to move now to the product and start with a quick introduction. Our platform and its welcome page is going to resemble a lot of AI products that you're likely familiar with because it starts in most cases with people just wanting to ask a question and get an answer. But that is where the similarities end. Within our portfolio, you have chat, you have research, you have matrix, and then you have a series of drafting features that also help you with artifact generation, things like PowerPoint slide creation, vertical memos, and increasingly also, first drafts of financial models. I'm going to spend most of the time today, again, as I mentioned, on Matrix, but the way I would think about our ecosystem is the following. Chat for most people in the world of using AI for finance is kind of like a calculator. Everyone more or less understands how to use it. It's quick, easy, simple, and for most people, they've more or less seen it before. Research, which is a deep research functionality, is a bit more like a scientific calculator. So it adds a level of complexity and capability on top of a chat, but is still foundationally limited by being able to only attend to a limited amount of content where the content isn't even all fully read and appreciated in the analysis, which is why we invented Matrix. Matrix is like the Excel of AI, meaning it's a way to do very robust, customizable analysis where we can do several things. One is we read every word of every document. Two is we give you the ability to run lots of prompts in parallel. So the reason why it is called a matrix and the reason why it resembles a grid is because it is a factory of agentic retrievals where each document is a row, each column is a prompt, and you can do all kinds of really, really cool things. So just to tick off the quick things on chat and research for the purposes of this demo to be comprehensive, our chat, not only is it a calculator, but it's like a financial calculator, right? So you have integrations here, including the ThirdBridge one for mutually entitled customers, where you can select the appropriate sources. We provide a lot of the best-in-class resources that are commonly used in the world of finance, including public company data from the SEC, as well as European filings for some of our more international clients. We also include CapIQ for all of our clients. For mutual clients, we include also FactSet's financials database as well as their M&A database. For more private markets focused folks, we have PitchBook, and the list is always growing. We also give you the ability to configure agents, save them, and share them so that when you have workflows that are chat-based or research-based, you can run them, you can schedule them, and you can return to them continuously. A very important differentiator that we have is we don't have capacity limits. So let's say you're a public markets investor and you want to run an initiation of coverage report on 4 companies a day. All you need to do is to type in the company name. This is a saved agent, which we give you off the shelf that generates an initiation of coverage style report. It purposefully will run over the web, public company data, and CapIQ financials so that you have, again, the right context in the report itself. And you can run these and also configure them for the amount of time it will take, as well as the number of sources, and make that selection based upon the project at hand. You will get follow-up questions so that you can really sort of hone in on what matters most to you. And you can generate these types of reports on the fly. So for me, one of the things I always struggled with as an investor is that you always want to try to stay fresh on the latest available information. And initiation of coverage reports, the fulsome ones generated by the sell side, are only periodically done. The good news here is that if you are a public markets investor, you can configure these and run them routinely so that the latest available information is always taken into account. This will take 10 minutes to run, so we don't need to wait for it. Happy to share the result with anyone who's interested after the call. One quick thing I will highlight too is that we're model agnostic, which means we give you access to all of the latest and greatest models, including those from OpenAI, Anthropic, and Gemini. We have a lot of use cases in production where we know very cleanly what models are better at what specific types of tasks. So we route to the best model when we can. We also give users the ability to toggle for those who are keen on understanding the nuanced differences between what these models are better or worse at versus one another. So I'm going to move now over to Matrix because I've been teasing that product quite a bit. When I demo Matrix, I tend to start with an example of a finished product, and then I tend to build one from scratch so that people can see both what it looks like when it's a fully built out work product, as well as how it comes together and is built live. Similar to Excel, there are sort of struggles doing both, right? You show an end product, which is what this is, and it looks like a lot of text and a lot of overwhelming information. But if I did it purely only from scratch, you likely wouldn't see the full power of what it can do. So that's why I'm going to do both. This example is a public markets example, but it is also a private markets example because what it is it's a library of all of the key disclosures that the most important company in the world today has made for 20 plus years of history. It's NVIDIA, obviously. What this matrix is each row is a document and each column is a prompt. This is an example of a matrix that we have built on behalf of clients, but it is one that we endeavor to coach clients how to build themselves because the true power of our platform usually involves a bit of a head start from what we provide off the shelf. And then coupled with the intelligence and perspective of the investors that we serve, they start to build and customize their own work product to achieve these types of things. So what's the value proposition of this thing? If I'm a public markets investor and I cover NVIDIA, I'm expected to be an expert on that company. Being an expert on that company, to me, is kind of like saying something that a former portfolio manager of mine once said. You're not an expert on a company until you've read 10 years worth of earnings call transcripts and Ks and Qs, and you understand a full enough history of that company to be even in the business predicting where it's going next. That challenge is a very difficult one, right? And if you have any other AI product that is a chat-based or RAG-based paradigm, you actually don't get much help because you have a 30 document capacity limit, number one. Number two, your AI tool is not going to read every word of every document. Number three, when you need the ability to have precision, i.e. to drill into a detail, you won't have that ability to do it reliably, and you often will face hallucinations. And number three, when you actually need to synthesize something, you want synthesis that actually takes into account the details that matter and trace everything back through for accuracy. So that's what this matrix solves, because in each one of these documents, when you craft a prompt and run it over the document, we are feeding the fulsomeness of that document through to the LLM and retrieving what matters. So for a company like NVIDIA, what we're doing is we are documenting longitudinally macro demand drivers, segment revenue drivers, non-recurring items in financials that will then inform how you model the company over time, things that they're saying about their expense drivers, anything that they discuss by segment in terms of drivers, pretty much anything and everything that you could want to track longitudinally for every company that you are expected to be an expert on. And what I want to do here is show you an example of how easy it is to not only get precision, but also to get synthesis. Something like product roadmap cadence is a topic that it's something that the company talks about over time. And what we do in our platform is we give you this ability to say, okay, I've got a question and it's a big meaty one. How has the company's product roadmap cadence, i.e. the frequency with which they release new product, changed over time? And when I bring just the topic and I hit suggest prompt, the platform will write a hygienic prompt for me that speaks in the language of the LLM so that I, as the user, don't have to be a prompt engineer. And all I then need to do is to hit save and run. Now what we're doing is we're going across all 200 of the documents in this matrix, which again includes a fulsome 20 plus year history of NVIDIA. And we are very precisely extracting all of the comments that they have made about their product roadmap cadence so that we can assess whether the frequency has changed over time. And if that frequency is a representation of how we're going to predict the future earnings power, future valuation of this company, we need the answer to be very robust, i.e. it takes into account the full history of the company so that we can detect change and we can very reliably understand how much it has truly changed versus history. So as you can see, it's going to quickly pull and in a matter of seconds is running, in this case, 200 parallel LLM prompts. And now it's done before I even finished my sentence. And so that you can build faith in AI and AI within our platform, each time we retrieve an answer, we'll be able to trace for you back to the line item source citation where we are pulling that answer. And when you are in the single document mode, i.e. maybe you found something that was interesting that you want to deep dive into for some earnings call from some historical period of time, we give you a portfolio of tools to also be very detail-oriented in that document. So we can allow you to chat over the document in a single document instance. If you have a table in there with numbers, we allow you to extract it directly to Excel. This button in our platform has killed data entry. So whether you're looking at a filing or you're looking at a SIM or you're looking at an investment committee memo or anything of the sort, if you need numbers to go from that document into Excel, this button has killed data entry for you forever. And for those who want to do Control F and double and triple check that our Control F feature works agentically, you can do your own Control F in the document to make sure that we're picking up everything that you need. Now, this is still a lot of information, which is why we've built this chat. This chat sits on top of the matrix, and what it is it's a chat feature that will look only at what you have curated on the right. So the stuff on the right is like a step one. Step one is I got a bunch of information. I'm trying to separate signal from noise. So I pick the topics that are of most importance. I separate that from the stuff that doesn't matter to me, and I map it in the grid to the right. Then my step on the left here is a very important one because it's my synthesis engine. So when I want to ask that big meaty question like, how has product roadmap changed over time? I get to punch this in here and ask the big meaty question that will then take into account everything that I've already curated on the right to give me an extremely robust answer to this question. This chat, the chat that we've built on top of this matrix, is the world's most powerful AI chat because it's supported by literally thousands of very detail-oriented chats on the right. So that way, when you're following an investment process, and for those on the call who are more private markets investors, you can see how this would help you in a VDR analysis. You can see how this would help you in analyzing SIMs. For those who work with contracts, you can see how you can extract and detail terms and conditions and then manage them according to changes that happen when you get new contracts or new opportunities. What this platform is a capability. It's the ability to take any information that sits anywhere and to convert it into insights. So this is an NVIDIA specific example, but I'll go through a few others that will be examples of what, for instance, private markets investors do on our platform. But the steps are identical, i.e. that it involves first mapping the things that matter on the right and then driving to your insights on the left. So I'm going to let this run for a minute. It's clearly, as you can tell, reading each of the columns, not just the column about product roadmap cadence, to make sure that when it gives an answer, it will be very fulsome. As you can tell now, this answer that's being generated is going to take into account all of that information. And then when it spits it out, you will have very high assurance that the answer is very robust. So we don't need to read through every single line, but you can tell that because 20 plus years of history is being taken into account here, the answer has been split up into phases to describe how the product roadmap cadence has changed over time. And again, because we give you line item citation to every single answer we give, you can go back into the matrix itself to find the source column and row. Then you can go into the source document and again, verify, verify, verify. This orchestration of AI that we have built solves the problem of hallucination. So for anybody who has ever dealt with either hallucination or lossiness in using AI, this is the answer to that problem. So yes, there will be a little bit of learning. Yes, you will have to learn how to craft some prompts that look like this one and maybe are a little bit more customized and detail-oriented over time. You might also need to learn a little bit about which models are best for what tasks, and for that matter, how to constrain the outcome into a specific type of format so that you get extremely high-quality answers when you're looking for numbers versus percents. But once you learn it, just like when you learned how to use Excel, the world of what you can do is gigantic. So I'm going to move over to another example now, and this one's a third bridge example. So let's stay in the vein of whether I am trying to research about NVIDIA, any private company, any public company, any industry topic, any macro topic, and I happen to be a third bridge client as well as a Hebbia client. What can I do? What I can do is I can build a library on top of third bridge's off-the-shelf library of available expert network transcripts. So I'm going to stay in the lane of NVIDIA here, but again, for any private markets person, any macro investor, your topic of search is just going to be a little bit different, but the process will be the same. So now I'm searching for NVIDIA experts, right? There's 1,400 of them that are in the library, so it's a large volume. I'm going to constrain it a little bit, both for recency and just so you know that the matrix itself is not so large that we won't actually get to completion by the next few minutes. So I'm going to take the last 6 months. So I'm going to dump these into, in this case, a blank matrix just to show you again what is possible. This is a bunch of people in the last handful of months that have talked about NVIDIA in some form or fashion. And because I'm adding each of those expert network calls into this matrix, I can then quickly surface the things that matter to me. So I am just going to put an example of a type of chip that happens to be important to NVIDIA and see if there are any experts who have spoken about, Blackwell production in these expert network calls, so that if I happen to be researching about Blackwell production for NVIDIA specifically, I get to very quickly find the experts in the network who have mentioned that specific product. Importantly, when they haven't said anything about it, we will tell you very clearly, not found in document, so that you can not waste time reading something that doesn't have your answer. But when it does have something that is your answer, again, it pulls it extremely quickly and then gives you a line item citation back into the transcript itself so that you can read in detail when you need to read in detail. As you can tell, as I was speaking, we ran 740 or so prompts, half of which were just in this column, and it was all done in a matter of seconds. You can very quickly see visually where there are answers and where there aren't. So when you're doing any type of an analysis over a body of expert network call notes, either the ones that are provided to you off the shelf from providers like ThirdBridge, who are great about doing that, or if you have just done a lot of your own bespoke ones over the years, these are always hundreds of documents of really rich information that if you just are sticking them on a drive system and then attaching them 30 at a time, to an AI product, or for that matter, even running a deep research query over a portfolio of them, you will miss things. So when you use our Matrix product to do this type of research, you will not miss things. And I can show you very reliably over infinite examples how our product makes sure that you don't miss things. So I've only covered a couple of examples, which again is not surprising. In our world, again, it's like demoing Excel. So I could literally spend hours demoing you all kinds of cool things. Where I'd like to spend the time today is to switch to a more direct private markets example, so that we at least have some examples of other types of workflows. I'm going to flash much more quickly through these because hopefully everyone by now has gotten the point. Private markets people, whether you're private equity or private credit, you get tons of inbound SIMs from bankers. How do you organize them and sift through what you want to spend time and what you don't want to spend time on? Easy process of configuring what matters to you, your strategy, your firm, your group into the prompts, and run a screening exercise over every inbound SIM instantaneously so that you can get straight to a go, no go on spending more time in a matter of seconds. A default capacity for a matrix is 1,000 documents and or SIMs. So you can literally run 1,000 of them in seconds, and we can also increase the capacity of the matrix so you can handle thousands in a single matrix. No limit to how many matrices you build. So many of our clients build them by sector, by strategy, and run screening processes that just make them faster, more effective, while still being very detailed in screening opportunities. For those who have to deal with VDRs, it's a similar exercise where if you configure prompts where your firm knows what risks it cares most about, or for that matter, what upside opportunities you're looking for, if you configure those into prompts, you can analyze VDRs in seconds and make sure that you pick up what matters and that you don't waste time on things that don't matter. And again, it's a very similar workflow. Another example, contracts, which I mentioned earlier. For those who are either real estate investors or credit investors dealing with contracts, in-house lawyers, even just lawyers in general, once you have to deal with a body of standardized documents where there is both need for detail as well as for synthesis, you can configure a matrix like this one that can analyze lease agreements in a matter of seconds, extract all the key terms that matter, map them, manage towards them, manage a portfolio of assets much more intelligently and in a very organized and robust way, all within our platform. And there are many, many, many more examples. For those who are distressed focused investors, you can screen for distress signals in public or private filings and color code them so that you have a heat map of, oh, hang on a second, there are lots of signs of risk here. Maybe I should either avoid this opportunity if I'm long only, or if I have the ability to short, maybe that then means it's alpha potential on the short side. So I know I am approaching time here, and I want to at least leave maybe a second or two for folks to ask questions. We covered a lot of ground. Thanks everyone for the time and the attention. And don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions that obviously myself or Hebbia can help with in your discovery process.
Barry, thanks. Could you do us a quick favor and
Mhm.
could you run the expert call insights agent and just show folks how to access that within the platform? Um,
Absolutely. So for those who are ThirdBridge customers, um, it will appear in several places, but Browse is our platform or our surface for managing your data integrations and entitlements. And we obviously have a tile here for ThirdBridge where you can agentically query to find what you are looking for and then build workflow on top. So there, when you were starting with the integration, and let's say you wanted to do research on Amazon, similar to what I did before, you can then find the experts that you want to do analysis over, and then you can choose, in this case, what precisely you want to do. So in this case, whether you want to do a quick and easy chat, or you want to do a deep research, or you want to do a matrix, you just start from here. Because this is 59 experts, it will default you to matrix because matrix is the only product that can handle that type of capacity. But if it is a quick and easy, 10 expert call thing, you can also use research and chat. So it is accessible as a source everywhere in our platform, whether you start with chat, start with deep research, or start with matrix, or if you start with the integration itself to agentically query. So lots of different places to find it.
Awesome,
Does that
Barry.
help, Dan?
I'm conscious we're
Great.
at time. We had a couple questions come through, but we'll follow up with those over email. I'm conscious there are other sessions getting started, but Barry, really appreciate you joining. And to any of the attendees, if you want to learn more about ThirdBridge's integration with Hebbia or just more generally about the Hebbia platform, please do reach out. We're more than happy to make those introductions.
Thanks, Dan. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Barry.